Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
All right, welcome back to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. We're going to be going over a little bit of news today, a lot of news that is impacting fantasy football as a whole. And so before too much ado, we're going to get right into it. The leading story, obviously, with the most impact for an entire team, obviously, is the Tony Romo injury. Once again, in the preseason game against the Seahawks, a lot of people were upset. Dallas fans are upset about the injury because people believe that Averill quote-unquote did a cheap shot. I'm not just a Seahawks fan. It wasn't a cheap shot to me, but the impact to Dez Bryant and to Jason Witten, I think, is severe. Obviously, with Dez Bryant being my lead bust, more or less, just because I didn't believe in Tony Romo's health, and that's from a previous episode. But why don't you tell me a little bit, Ryan, about what you think that has to do with the running back situation and how that affects running back scoring?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, I think it's going to affect the whole team, and I honestly think, yes, Dez and Witten are going to be affected. However, the person I think that's going to be affected the most is actually, and I saw a poll on this on Twitter, asking, is it going to be Dez, is it going to be Witten, or is it going to be Ezekiel Elliott, who's going to be impacted the most severely? And I said none of them. It's actually going to be Terrence Williams, because the wide receiver 2 now becomes fantasy irrelevant even in deeper leagues, because those three guys are going to become the focus of the offense. Yeah. If we're just looking at the running back situation, actually our running back reporter Fong wrote a great article that I plan on having up, I believe, tomorrow, on just how Romo affects the running backs, and his thing was, well, this basically guarantees 300 touches for Ezekiel Elliott at this point. So I think it's going to push the run game more. I would step back a little bit on Dez. Wouldn't necessarily step back on Witten, simply because he's a good dump off guy for
Mr. Reliable.
Yeah, especially in PPR leagues. So I'm not totally against that, against Witten. He'd again still be a real late round guy, probably a tight end too. But in terms of the running backs, I think it honestly will give Ezekiel Elliott more touches, and really I think it almost makes Alfred Morris more valuable, because of how much I think because let's be honest, Dak Prescott is a rookie. They're going to take it a little bit easy with him. Yeah, he's looked great in the preseason, but again, like we've always said, so did Ryan Leaf, so did Nick Foles in his rookie season. So I think they're going to push the run game more, and so I think that will give more opportunity for Alfred Morris to get work, and he's shown that he can do the job. So for me, I think it may pull back a little bit on the touchdown production, but in overall touches and yards, I think it's a wash. So I'd move up Elliott a little bit, almost.
Okay. And so moving on, A.J. Green in his game made a cut near the sideline, immediately came up hobbling. Reports are now that things are not serious. I know tons of people who have him making a huge year this year. A lot of people have him as a top.
You being one of them.
Yeah, a lot of people have him as the fourth wide receiver. I have him top 5, just because the workload's going to be there. And so tell us a little bit what you think. Should people be concerned? Should people just continue to draft him where he is? Does this affect his draft stock at all for those who haven't drafted already?
I don't think so. again, it was actually kind of a bang bang play in the end zone. Kind of him and the DB kind of banged knees against each other as they went down. I think if it was actually serious, the Cincinnati Bengals would not have let AJ Green do a post game interview. So
Dallas let Tony Romo do a post game interview.
That's Dallas. So yeah, Green. I think Green's fine. They gave me. It didn't really affect how I thought about him. If he had limping off the field is one thing, and being able to then just holding him out. He wasn't needing to go in for any tests or anything as far as I know. So I'm fine. I drafted him. As with the 6th overall pick in a 10-team PPR draft the other night. So. I still love the fact that I've got him. There's no one else except for maybe Tyler Boyd. In terms of wide receivers, it's in terms of receiving that's worth owning right there on that team. So,
yeah, kind of our next piece of news as we move along here is that Trevor Siemian has been named the Game 1 starter for Denver. This doesn't have a lot of draft ramifications, in my opinion, but there are people who believe that this does have an effect on receivers like Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders. Tell us a little bit, Ryan, what your thoughts are on whether this has any effect whatsoever. We know it is going to have an effect on Mark Sanchez, probably more than likely going to be cut. Is there a team out there that you think he may land on? He was a backup, or tell us a little bit more of your thoughts on the situation.
Well, Dallas is obviously, a possible destination just because they want a veteran backup now who's actually going to be available. Since I'm pretty sure they're done taking John Kitna as a backup quarterback. No, he's, since last time they picked him up, he was coaching high school football up here in the Tacoma, Washington area. So no, I think Sanchez could find another possible landing spot. Someone mentioned Seattle just as a veteran backup. Maybe pushing Boykin down to number 3. I don't think that he fits in our offensive system up here in Seattle. So I believe there will be a landing spot for him. I couldn't name a spot in terms of how Simeon's going to affect the rest of the team. This really drops Emmanuel Sanders down.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been great the last couple of years. I think Simeon's going to target Demaryius Thomas. Demaryius Thomas is going to get most of the shots there, and they're really going to push the run game with C.J. Anderson and with was it Devontae Booker?
Yeah.
Who's really flashed so far this preseason?
Yeah. Does this increase your opinion, C.J. Anderson as a running back viable option, or do you think they were going to be more run heavy regardless?
I think they were going to be more run heavy regardless, just because of the options that they had for quarterback. So I think C.J. Anderson, and they re-signed C.J. Anderson. They matched the offer that Miami gave him. So they wanted him back. They didn't want to let him get away. So I think he is the guy. They've got their backup. I could see Ronnie Hillman getting most likely getting dropped, getting cut. So he's. I think Anderson's definitely a guy to watch that I could see maybe climbing up the draft board just a little bit more with this news, just because this is it's not the best Simeon's one snap in the NFL, like in regular season, was a QB kneel to end a game.
Yeah. So. Moving on once again to really a surprise from all intents and purposes. Kind of the Cleveland Browns have kind of, under new head coaching, kind of emerged as a possible threat in their division and kind of an emerging team. There's a lot of good vibes, if you were, going around Cleveland right now. I know Josh Gordon had a monstrous game, only 2 receptions, but 87 yards and 2 catches. In a preseason game is doing pretty good, considering he hasn't played a game since 2014. Tell us a little bit what you think the ramifications are to the rest of the team with how Cleveland has been playing so far.
So here's the deal. It very well could be that Cleveland is this year's Jacksonville Jaguars. What the Jacksonville Jaguars were last year, just because of how horrible their defense was. Their running game wasn't great, but their offense, their passing game was explosive because it needed to be. So they were throwing the ball up like crazy. Now, with the dynamic that RG3 can provide in terms of being a running quarterback, and on top of that, they've got, I think, which really helps Isaiah Crowell doing like a zone read type of thing. I think Crowell could be in for a 1,000-yard rushing season. Again, Hugh Jackson really likes running the ball, and with the way that RG3 plays his game, he doesn't like dumping off to the running back. So I think it could negatively affect Duke Johnson. But if you look, the wide receivers that they've got, Terrell Pryor showing the deep threat ability, the ability to catch the ball and run decent routes. We know what Josh Gordon can do when he is on, when he is fully healthy and fully engaged. The man is a monster. 1,600 yards in 14 games in 2013. So yeah, he had the full season off last year. He's I think it's possible that he could be, get up to being a wide receiver 2 this year.
Yeah.
Terrell Pryor, I think, is still a deep league only, 14 teams and up type of option, a bench stash to kind of see how he goes. But I would not be afraid to draft Josh Gordon in the 6th, 7th round. If I have a deep enough bench, be willing to stash him, and kind of, especially if I've drafted well with my wide receivers early.
Do you draft? Are you willing to draft Gordon before you have your starting 2 running backs?
In PPR, yes.
Okay.
I go, again, I'm the 0 RB type of guy. So if I don't think the value is there for running backs early, I'll draft 4 or 5 wide receivers. Especially, again, in most leagues I play, it's 2 wide receivers and 2 flex, or 3 wide receivers and a flex. So I'm playing 4 wide receivers. So I'm drafting. My first 3 to 4 picks are going to be wide receivers, maybe a tight end. And if the value of a running back like a Mark Ingram falls to me, then I'll take someone like that. But yeah, I probably in a PPR, yes. In a standard, I'm probably going to have my starting 2 running backs anyways.
Yeah.
And so taking him in the 6th, I wait on tight ends and quarterbacks like we talked about in our sleepers episode, taking those guys really late. So I would already have my starting 3 or 4 wide receivers by the time I got to him, and my top 2 running backs. So,
yeah, okay. Kind of the news that I had one good bust pick so far, but so far Ben Roethlisberger, or Ben Rascal Scooter, as I have called him, due to the ice bags on his knees during some training camps and all that other kind of stuff, had a rather impressive game, going 12 for 17, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's some talk about Jesse James, coolest name in the NFL in my opinion, having some viable options with Green still being in that murky water with concussion protocol and his headaches and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel Ben Roethlisberger is kind of still middle of the road, or does this game change any of your opinions on Ben Roethlisberger so far?
Here's the deal. I never doubt Ben Roethlisberger's talent. That has never been in doubt. My doubts have been on whether or not he could stay healthy, especially the last couple of years. He has the ability to throw the ball all over the map. He could throw for 5,000 yards because he has the talent around him. Now with Martavis Bryant going down, being suspended, they haven't had that number 2 wide receiver really step up yet in terms of Sammy Coates and Marcus Wheaton. Neither one of them has really stood out. I think Wheaton's got the job just because of how poorly Coates has played in actual game play. been great in practice, then just couldn't put it together on the field. So he has the weapons around him, and then after 3 games, D'Angelo Williams will fill in fine for Le'Veon Bell, can run the ball, can catch the ball out of the backfield. When Le'Veon Bell comes back, they'll still have the weapons. They've got Antonio Brown. If Jesse James can be even a little bit better than what Heath Miller was last year, they'll still be in good shape. Heath Miller being on basically the end of his career, because I'm pretty sure with retiring and everything, he was still a safety blanket that I used in like a 14-team league. I had him as my tight end for first half of the season. So he's that position is still used as a safety blanket by Ben Roethlisberger. So I think that Ben has the weapons around him to still be great. I question when is he going to miss time again? So
I couldn't agree more. I think Ben Roethlisberger's propensity to get injured. It's a physical game. I don't see him making it through the entire season. But moving on, I know this situation, we're going to be talking about the Bengals running backs and the San Diego running back situation. I know a lot of people are kind of stuck in this quandary between Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. Both had pretty good games for the time that they were in. There were some injuries to the Cincinnati offense and Cincinnati defense. Not much that I see affecting fantasy players, once again, with A.J. Green already being covered. Tell us a little bit of, Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill, who do you take where? Who do you take in PPR, standard? Does it matter?
Well, yes, it does. And so here, the basic rule of thumb is that Jeremy Hill will be the guy that you'd probably rather have in standard leagues because of the touchdown upside. In terms of PPR, due to the fact that he can catch the ball so much, is Giovanni Bernard, especially with Tyler Eifert out at least 2 to 3 weeks. I believe he's targeting around or a week 4 return. So with that, Giovanni Bernard is especially going to get targeted a lot I think in the first few games. So PPR, again, PPR is probably more of a Giovanni Bernard. Now, in PPR, he's going to be going a lot sooner than you would in a standard league because of how many touches he's not going to be getting with the that just aren't going to be getting that way with the point scoring. So here's the deal: Giovanni is going to be going ahead of Jeremy Hill in PPR. So if you're like me and you're taking the 0 running back draft strategy in PPR and you're drafting a whole bunch of wide receivers, Jeremy Hill may be going earlier than you feel comfortable taking a running back. No, maybe not. If he's going too soon, say in the 4th or 5th, and you still like the wide receivers better, you could take Jeremy Hill a little bit later and still be fine because of his touchdown upside. Now he's not going to catch the balls, but because Giovanni Bernard's there. The other way to look at it is that Giovanni Bernard may be more valuable simply because if Gio goes down, Hill's role doesn't change. Hill still is a downhill runner that's not going to catch a whole lot of balls out of the backfield. He's going to be the bruiser, the short downs. He's going to be the workhorse. But in terms of running the ball, however, if Hill goes down, Gio still keeps that role of catching the ball out of the backfield, but then he's also getting more rushing attempts. So, Gio provides the more value in terms of in standard just because his role could expand. Hills will stay static. So, that's maybe one reason to take Gio later. But, general rule of thumb, Hill's the guy to own in standard and Gio in PPR leagues. So,
kind of to stay on this, do you feel Giovanni Bernard will be a feasible running back? Because I know there's a lot of people who believe kind of that if Jeremy Hill goes down, Gio Bernard's his role changes, but his impact doesn't, because a lot of people don't believe in his running back ability. And there are people who believe that if Jeremy Hill goes down, Giovanni Bernard won't get the running opportunity, as if, say, if Gio goes down, Jeremy Hill stays the running back and will maintain the number one role and will be undoubtedly by himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, here's the deal, and this is actually why I actually drafted Jeremy Hill his rookie year at like number 100 overall in one of my drafts. I drafted Jeremy Hill and was able to get great value out of him, especially down the road in the season when he took off, taking over for Giovanni Bernard, because I didn't think at that time that Gio could hold up as the number one all-around back, which Hugh Jackson tried to make him. Turns out he couldn't hold up under that kind of a role. So I think that Gio will still have a good role. He will get more touches. I don't think he's not going to be as effective as Hill. That's the thing. He was not going to be as effective as Hill, but he will still his floor goes up a little bit simply because of the extra carries and everything that he'll be getting. So,
okay, moving on to the San Diego Chargers running back situation. Rather gruesome injury happened to Brandon Oliver with the Achilles injury. There's a lot of people who believe that Melvin Gordon, and I believe that Melvin Gordon is going to have a more increased role with the passing game, not necessarily to wipe out Danny Woodhead's PPR value, but I think Melvin Gordon's going to have one of those post-hype quality years this year. And he played a pretty good game, but tell us a little bit. I mean, you're one of the biggest Danny Woodhead fans I know on the planet, and you'll use him as your starting running back too all season long and be perfectly okay with that. Tell us a little bit of how you feel this dynamic will happen. Brandon Oliver's obviously out for the season. Tell us a little bit what you think of this dynamic within San Diego.
So here's the deal. San Diego wants Melvin Gordon to be the all-around back. Danny Woodhead is, 31, 32. So, I mean, he's getting up there a little bit. I love Danny Woodhead. I think he is overrated this year. I think everyone's too willing to take him in the 4th and 5th rounds of PPR leagues and 12-man leagues. I got lucky in my league a couple nights ago when I drafted. Everyone's looking at their sheets where Gio's where Danny Woodhead is like ranked like number 37 overall in PPR with the cheat sheet that everyone was handed. And we're at pick like number 60, and everyone keeps saying, well, Danny Woodhead's still there. Danny Woodhead's still there. Danny Woodhead's, but no one's picking him. So I'm like, well, 7th round, yeah, I'll take him as my running back 3. I wasn't going to take him in the 4th and 5th round where I thought that everyone was going to take him anyways, and people thought I was going to take him. So I think if you can get him at the right value, if people are starting to buy into Melvin Gordon, I think the role could still be there with Ken Wisenhunt as the offensive coordinator, who was there in 2013 when Danny Woodhead really had his big role with Ryan Matthews as kind of the bruiser every kind of first and second down back. That was the year that Danny Woodhead really had a great year, and I think finished as like the number 16 running back in standard leagues, let alone PPR. So Danny Woodhead will still have a role, especially with the pass-happy offense. They want to get Melvin Gordon more involved in catching the ball. Last year, I think Gordon still had like 35, 40 catches last year. So again, they want, and that was with Danny Woodhead finishing with 80. So they want to get Gordon more involved. He's younger. He's the future of the franchise in the backfield. So it's still going to be a 1-2 punch. Woodhead's not going to get a whole lot of carries, but what he's going to get is more going to be, that third down, passing back down, passing down back kind of a thing. And Rivers trusts him, especially in the red zone, to throw him the ball. So
yeah, and Melvin Gordon did have a catch for a touchdown, and so they are showing more and more passing trust with Melvin Gordon. I just find it ironic that as soon as everybody else jumps on the Danny Woodhead train, you're jumping off, and so.
No,
but that's good. That's good. You want to be ahead of the curve. Like one of the best fantasy drafting strategies we can tell you is don't follow the run. If everyone is drafting, running, or tight ends just going to run, or quarterbacks just going to run, don't fall for that, because you'll end up reaching, because no one's going to draft that again. And so now with everyone kind of high on Danny Woodhead, this is maybe not the year to take him and let somebody else suffer the consequences.
Well, there's enough people that are still not believing in Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of the reason why people are going after Danny Woodhead as early as they do. Danny Woodhead's not going to provide the top. He's not going to be the top 3 or 4 running back that he was last year in PPR, unless Gordon goes down. So.
Or fumbles the ball again.
Well, I think at this point they're gonna stick with Gordon. They're just gonna keep pushing. I really don't think they're going to threaten too much. Even Denver in the AFC West. Kansas City is still looking good, and Oakland has made so many improvements on their defense. If their offense can really get going, and Latavius Murray can get absolutely pounded through. San Diego has a lot to a big hill to climb to get out of the cellar. So,
okay, that kind of wraps it up for us. Once again, we want to thank you guys for joining us for this episode of just kind of a new show for the Fantasy Football Podcast. Catch us on iTunes. You can check out the website at SkullKingFootball.com. You can listen to us on YouTube and on iTunes. Once again, please share, send us a comment, send us a like. Once again, thank you for joining us for this episode, and we will catch you for the next one.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later, guys.